Good afternoon. I will be taking you through how to write a learning outcome. The first step to knowing how to write a learning outcome is to understand what a learning outcome is. So learning outcomes are student-focused. It is focused on the person who is doing the learning. You want to focus on the learning that results specifically from an experience that you're providing. So what is it that the person can now do, know, or think as a result of this experience? So the focus is not on the activity itself, but on its impact on the student or on the person who is experiencing or undergoing that activity. Learning outcomes are also aligned with the mission and values of the course or program, the department, division, and the institution. So it should be consistent with the foundational documents and the stated goals that have been set forth by those particular entities. Learning outcomes should also focus on skills and abilities that are central to the discipline and based on professional standards of excellence. So even broader and beyond the institution level, think about what is it that these people are supposed to learn or be able to do. So as an alumnus or as a professional in the discipline, as global citizens, how do the people that you are providing these programs and services to respond, and how are they impacted by these experiences? So to write an effective learning outcome, you simply need to remember your ABCs. So the ABCD structure of a learning outcome refers to A, audience, who does the outcome pertain to? B stands for the behavior, what is it that you expect the audience to be able to know or do as a result of your experience? C is condition, under what conditions or circumstances will the learning occur? And D for degree, so how much will be accomplished? How well will the behavior need to be performed, and to what level? So you are setting the criterion here. So to take you through these different elements of a learning outcome, you want to think first about your audience. So generally speaking, when we're speaking of learning outcomes, we tend to think of students as our primary audience. They're the people that we have the most contact with on a campus, and they're most often the focus of our programs and services and curricula, and so they're generally the ones that we're focused on as the learners. However, they are not the only people who are affected by your programs and services. Think about other people who are impacted and who are experiencing these same activities and these same events. That may be your faculty and staff. It may be your alumni or families of your students. Even beyond just the institution, you may think about how the community members or business partners are impacted by your programs and services, or possibly even people who are employing your graduates. How are they all impacted by the services that you are providing or the programs that you're providing? So think about all of the potential people who are impacted by these experiences, and you will have identified your audience. The second element of a learning outcome is behavior. So we're talking here about action verbs. Many people will use Bloom's taxonomy as a starting point for identifying what action verbs need to be used or that they can use to identify the different kinds of learning that are happening as a result of experiences. But you may also look to professional standards that have been established in your discipline. You may look at professional organizations and see if there are any objectives that have been identified by those professional organizations regarding what people should be able to do, think, or know as a result of your programs or curricula or experiences that you're providing. The third element is C, condition. So this refers to what experiences will the person have that you hope will produce learning. So for example, you might say, after completing orientation, a student will be able to, or after participating in this workshop, faculty members will be able to. After completing this class or after completing this curriculum, students will be able to, or as a result of participating in this project. So think about what experience it is that is providing that opportunity for change, providing the opportunity for learning, and you will have identified your condition. The final element of a learning outcome is D, degree. So this is referring to the metric or the unit of measure by which you are going to establish whether or not learning has indeed occurred. So you may think about degree in terms of a score. Is there some kind of a numerical indicator of learning that you can provide? You may also count as a measure. So how many times does a student do something, or how much is a student doing something? And that may be the way that you establish the criteria to indicate whether learning has indeed occurred. Time could also be a measure that you use to establish whether or not someone has indeed learned something. So you might ask, how fast are they doing something? How long are they doing something? How long does something take to start? Timeliness could also be measured in terms of deadlines or turnaround times. And so think about all of the different ways that you might measure a behavior, and that could give you an example of what your degree or extent should be. Another way that you might measure degree is in terms of accuracy, so whether somebody is correct or how correct someone is. Or you could use a more qualitative measure, such as novelty or creativity, to establish the extent to which a behavior must occur in order for you to say that learning has in fact occurred and that a change has occurred in that student. So a typical learning outcome statement will be stated or could be stated in the following way. A, the audience will. B, learn what, can do what. C, under what circumstances or conditions. D, to what level of efficiency or effectiveness. So let's look at a couple of examples and break down how these examples address each of the different elements of a learning outcome statement. Our first example, after participating in a leadership retreat, organization presidents will be able to differentiate between tasks to complete themselves versus those to delegate to their executive board before their first spring semester planning meeting. So to identify the first element, the audience, who is doing the learning in this case, we have organization presidents. B, for behavior, what is it that they're going to be able to do? They will be able to differentiate between tasks to complete themselves versus those to delegate to their executive board. C, condition. What is the condition under which they're going to be able to do this? What is the experience that is going to lead to this learning? In this case, it is the leadership retreat. So after participating in the leadership retreat, they will be able to do this. And the final element, D, or degree, represents what is the metric, to what extent must this happen. Here we have a time-based measure, so before their first spring semester planning meeting, they will be able to do this. Here we have a specific, measurable learning outcome. Others can agree on whether or not this has occurred. They can agree on what it is that is expected of this particular person or of these organization presidents. So this would be a good learning outcome example. Let's take another example. Students who complete the requirements for a psychology major will be able to use reliable and valid measures for the variables of interest. Again, our first element is audience. Here we have students. They're the people who are going to be doing the learning. The behavior that we expect is that they will be able to use measures for variables of interest. C, the condition under which this is going to occur. This will be upon completion of the requirements for a psychology major. And to what extent are they going to be able to use measures for the variables of interest? To the extent to which those measures are reliable and valid. So here we have a quality measure of degree. Again, here we have a specific, measurable, and verifiable learning outcome that others can understand and verify so that you can have some reliability in terms of your outcomes and its measurement. So again, just to recap, in order to write an effective learning outcome statement, you just need to remember the ABCDs: audience, behavior,